Do you ever feel nervous before a court appearance or a big meeting, negotiation? Maybe it's the legal team that you're meeting with, and you wish it would go away because that nervousness really impacts the way you show up, and you're afraid you're going to say the wrong thing. So how do we solve this? Because everybody feels nervous at some point. Well, there is a solution. Welcome to Front Porch Lawyer, where we explore the humanity of lawyering. I'm Francine, your host. Years ago, when I was still a law student, I made my first court appearance. And wow, I was nervous. I was nervous before I made the appearance, and I was nervous throughout the entire appearance. And I was there as a sponsored law student, and I was there on a demur that was unopposed. In other words, it would be really hard to lose this motion. And I showed up and I was still nervous, and I remember putting my hands down on the table, and I had my fingers pressing down on the table so hard that when I finally did leave, my fingers were kind of stuck like that for a while. And I felt my knees shaking, and I was afraid that people behind me could see my skirt shaking because my knees were shaking. And I was nervous the whole time. But later, when I became a lawyer, I made my next court appearance as an attorney, and I didn't experience that. And I had to scratch my head a little bit and say, wow, how come the first court appearance, was it just because I was a student that I was so nervous? Or was it because I became a lawyer that was different? What was the difference? And time after time, I just would recognize that I was never nervous when I went to court. And then I started doing public speaking. And I would get on stage and I wasn't nervous. And people would talk about how nervous they were ahead of time. And I would feel nervous before I would get on stage, just a little bit, the butterflies, which is always a good thing. But when I got on stage, all of a sudden that nervousness just disappeared. The first time I did a continuing legal education course in front of an audience of 20 people and then 100 people, not nervous. And so I had to scratch my head a little bit and say, well, what's the difference? What really was the difference? And after I pulled back everything and really figured it out, here was the difference. The difference was, when I was a law student, I was worried about me. And when I went to court as a lawyer, and when I'm on stage, I'm not worried about me. I'm worried about my client. I'm thinking about my client when I go to court or in a negotiation, about my client. How is this all going to work for my client? How is this going to be the consequences for my client? How is this going to play out for my client? I'm thinking about my client. When I'm on stage and presenting, whether it's a continuing legal education course or just speaking to an audience, maybe it's an inspirational or motivational talk, it doesn't matter. I'm thinking about them and how what I'm going to say is going to help them. What are their needs? How do I fulfill their needs? And so as long as I'm thinking about somebody else's needs and not my needs, I'm not nervous. And I realized, speaking to many people who are public speakers, this is the key. Those who don't get nervous when they're speaking in front of a large audience, I've spoken to people who've spoken in front of 1,500 people, is that they're not thinking about their own needs. They're thinking about the needs of the audience. And I realized this is the same for us lawyers. So if you're getting nervous in a negotiation or a meeting or in court, stop and think about who you're thinking about, whose needs are paramount in your mind. Because if it's you, you're always going to be nervous. But as soon as you make your focus on somebody else's needs, whether it's the judge's needs to understand or your client's needs to get the outcome you're trying to get, all of a sudden you stop thinking about yourself and all that nervousness starts to dissipate. So give it a try and let me know how this works out for you. Thank you for joining me on my front porch. This is Front Porch Lawyer and Francine Tone, and I'll see you next time.